What's up? Episode 14 of the Progressive Resistance Podcast, aka the PR Podcast, coming at you. And we're going to put some fat on your brain, talking about fitness, talking about strengthening and how it meets the physical therapy world. I'm excited about that. We're also going to, of course, inevitably always talk about some personal development stuff. Here with my guest, Mike Alzheimer, and I'm excited for this one. I hope you guys enjoy it. Don't forget, subscribe, like, share, build the better you. Couple items of housekeeping per usual. Reminder that if you're just finding this podcast at some point, it is on YouTube, the Luke Krubeck YouTube channel. We've got a playlist on there for the podcast. It's also on Spotify. It's also on Apple. So you can stream them, listen to them, download them, and have them wherever you go if you so choose. I appreciate the support. I always want to express my gratitude for anyone that is finding these, enjoying them, and of course, sharing them. We want to get the word out and spread some good information, some good positivity, and help people ultimately, build the better you. So don't forget to like, to share, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Got to call you guys to action on that. So thank you in advance. So let's get right into it. I'd like to introduce my guest today. It's a name that you won't forget, Mike Alzheimer. I had to, Mike. I had to. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I've heard them all. It's okay.
Okay. So Mike is coming to visit us from over the mountain over in Sheridan, Wyoming. I appreciate you making the trip and taking time out of ultimately what is a busy schedule for you, just like it is for me, to make the trip and come over here and have some good conversations of which we're kind of, I guess, picking up where we left off. I guess we should, before I let you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you, we should tell the people how we met.
Yeah.
It's a really romantic story.
Yeah.
Mike and I met at a continuing education course for physical therapy. Our eyes met, we locked in, we were the only two meatheads in the building. So we,
I saw those big shoulders from across the room and I was like, I'm going to sit next to that guy.
Yeah. Cause I think I got there first and I was posted up, waiting for class to start, and he is, saddled up next to me. And, so we were lab partners for that and immediately started some conversations and realized that we had a lot in common. We went to dinner that night and I think solved at least 10 of the world's problems.
At least
that night.
9 or 10. Yeah. Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was at that dinner that I told Mike that I would love to set a time in the future to have him as a guest on the podcast, because the things that we were chatting about, I think, have some value and can be shared with some other people too. So that's how I know Mike, and then getting to know him, found out that we have a ton in common, from not only our business models, but just interests in the strength and fitness world as well. So that's how Mike and I came to know each other, and we'll talk more about some of those similarities and parallels that we have in our life, which are pretty interesting, and only living 2.5, 3 hours apart. So kind of a small world, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So tell the people, Mike, let's hear about who is Mike Alzheimer, and tell us a little bit kind of like where you're from, your history, where you grew up, and give us the cliff notes of all that and where you're at today.
Yeah, so I live in Sheridan, Wyoming, so not too far away. Like Luke, I'm like I like to call it like a barbell physio, so strength and conditioning, and we combine that with like physical therapy. I'm a co-owner of a gym in Sheridan called Forge Physio and Performance. My business partner, he runs the performance side, so and he's like himself a competitive elite level power lifter. I am not. I just want to be power builder, I call it, like bodybuilding, a little combo of powerlifting. And then I run the physical therapy side. But yeah, always had an interest in sports and lifting. I was going to go down the MD route. My dad's a radiologist and my mom's a nurse, so I thought I was kind of going to do the same thing, work in the medical field. But having been around it, I kind of lost the taste for wanting to be in the hospital setting. So I decided to change routes and became a personal trainer. I had my pre-med degree, but I wanted to take some time off, kind of figure out what I wanted to do. So worked at actually a powerlifting gym. I'd never powerlifted, but this guy just had his solo training little gym that he trained out of, and he wasn't looking to and didn't have any other trainers, but I just kind of found him and I was like, I'll help you grow your business. I'll do whatever you want. I just want to get my feet wet in this. And I was interested in business as well. So in the business world and also in like the personal training and the gym, because I was thinking maybe being something in that field, the health and wellness field, be something I'd want to do instead of doing the MD route. So worked with him. It's called Big Sky Barbells up in Bozeman, and really loved it. Fell in love with powerlifting, and through him, I actually heard about a guy named Kelly Starrett. He gave me a book called The Supple Leopard, and to be honest, it's kind of embarrassing. Kelly is a physical therapist, and I had no idea what physical therapy was. I was reading his book, and having read it, it was cool. I mean, his whole motto is like, you should be able to perform maintenance and work on yourself and know what your ranges should be, and just kind of like a checklist of ways that you should be able to at least try to address and fix your issues. And it's just kind of like this manual mobility Bible of that. But when I'm reading it and then seeing what he does for a profession, he's a physical therapist and runs this San Francisco CrossFit gym in San Fran. And looking at that, I was like, well, he's combining like health and wellness and, fitness and medicine in the kind of a field. And so I looked into physical therapy and thought, wow, this really marries really well with my two passions with that. So ended up pursuing that. Got ready to go off to physical therapy school, and I said, well, I applied to multiple schools, but might as well apply to San Francisco so I could meet this guy. And so sure enough, the only school I got into got rejected from all except for San Fran. So I went there. And while there, I kind of like bolstered up the courage. I was like, I'm going to go to this guy's gym and say hi. And he was teaching a seminar, and I came up to him after the seminar and introduced myself, all fangirling. I'm like, hey, I'm Mike. I'm a PT student. And he's like, you're a physical therapy student? Bring it in, brother. And just gives me a big bear hug and super welcoming. And so long story short, throughout my 3 years out in San Fran PT school, I was just a fly in the wall in their gym. Tried to learn everything I could from him. And then the cool thing about that area, there's so many well-known powerlifters like Mark Bell, Dan Green, Jesse Burdick. Try to just rub shoulders with all those guys and kind of learn everything I could from both the physical therapy and this fitness and powerlifting world. And then by the end of my 3 years at the PT school there, Kelly was saying, when are you done with school? And I was like, I'll be done in June. He's like, good, we want to hire you. So I without even asking, I got my dream job getting to work with Kelly. And so I was there and was one of their physical therapists for a while. And then 2020 happened, the pandemic. And unfortunately, with things how they were in San Fran, like gyms, of course, were completely shut down. Mm-hmm. And so Kelly and his wife, Juliet, they were amazing employers, and they were making sure we all got our full salaries despite not seeing clients and patients. And, they, even with the loans and all that they had available, they were just sinking money, trying to keep us all afloat in hopes that if things turn around, that the whole family and crew can come back together. But it got to the point where they were about $250K in debt with the gym. So I kind of saw the writing on the wall, and I imagined they were going to shut down, which was a tough situation. I was like, okay, where do I go from here? Mm-hmm. And then fortunately for me, my best friend from Wyoming, his name's Chancellor Perry, he was up in Bozeman as well, but he moved back to Sheridan. And during the pandemic, gyms were closed, and he's like, screw that, I got to work out. Like, all us, it's like, you can't just not work out.
Right.
So him and his dad both have a lot of experience, like working on cars and welding. So they said, well, everything was back ordered, like Rogue, whatever. Sure. You couldn't get equipment. So he's like, I'm not waiting 6 months for a power rack. So him and his dad just started welding and making equipment out of their garage. And, he had this little home gym. It just had a bench, a squat, a deadlift platform, and some dumbbells. And started working out there. And then sure enough, people kind of heard about it. And it's like, hey, can we come train at your gym? Yeah. And he's like, yeah, I don't care. And some of those people were like friends and family that kind of turned into clients because they, didn't really know what they were doing. Yep. And then that grew to where like, okay, this is just a little one stall garage. There's not enough space for multiple people here. Right. So he, unbeknownst to me, he buys this like 1,000 square foot shop. And him and I are talking during the pandemic, and he's like, man, it was like July. It was like my birthday was coming. I was like, dude, you need to come home. Things are crazy there. You just need to be back home, be around some friends and family. I was like, that's actually a really good idea. I should do that. And so I flew back, and he said he had a birthday surprise for me. And so I get there, and I go to his house to meet up with him. He's like, come with me, or I want to show you something. And then he opens the doors to this like 1,000 square foot little gym. And he's like, surprise, I have a gym. And I was like, well, that's your present. That's not really my birthday present. I was like, good for you. I'm stuck here in the pandemic, locked in. But him and I, we were talking, and even before physical therapy school, when I was like working at Big Sky Barbell, and Chance and I were talking, we both had the similar vision of like, maybe we could open a business together. And so he's like, hey man, like, I know things are tough in San Francisco. I've got clientele. I've got a gym. It's like, dude, we could do this. Like, I don't see why not. Like, we should just, you can bring the physical therapy side in. I'll keep on doing my training. And so I was trying to decide. I mean, it's like, leave this dream job or, kind of jump ship and move back home. And in my mind too. And I was like, this is Sheridan. It's like, I'm not in a big city. Like, I don't know if I'll have the same networking and opportunities. But the first night we worked out there, I just had this weird feeling in my gut. I was like, oh man, it was kind of scary actually. I was like, this is it. This is our gym. Like, this is what we had dreamed about, talked about. And, Chancellor started it. It's like, it's happening. So him and I went to Walmart after a workout, grabbed some Subway sandwiches, and we're just sitting in the parking lot. And I was like, all right, dude, let's do it. He's like, are you serious? It's like, don't mess with me, dude. It's like, I'm serious. So with like a mayo covered handshake, we like shook hands and we were like, all right, dude, let's do it. So yeah, I had to go back to San Fran. I reached out to Kelly and I was like, I have this opportunity back home. I've always had a dream of kind of opening a gym. So I think my best friend and I are going to start up a physical therapy / gym together. And, I'd emailed him this and I was kind of nervous. I was like, dude, he gave me this opportunity. He's been so good to me. And then I get this email back and it just says, let's go, all caps. Like, he's like, dude, I'm so stoked for you. Like, you're going to have like the best Midwest Performance Center. And, he's just like super, super on my side and supportive, which really like just gave me some relief. I'm like, all right, dude, this is the right path. Yeah. Like, he's my mentor. The guy I look up to is like, just, dude, go for it. Gave you the green light. Like, so wrapped up things there, and started doing the physical therapy side with Chancellor there. And so that was our technically second location if you include the garage. And then now here we are 4 years later. We've upgraded to another facility, and then now we're on our final, or our newest facility. We opened up in May. We moved into an old ironworks building, Sheridan Ironworks, and now we have like, and it expanded into having like open gym, like 24/7. We added another physical therapist. We added another trainer, Mason Secor. He's been with us for a few years, and then we just started adding other people, and we're looking for a third therapist. So it's like growth has been great. Like, it's still like, to us, it's just like mind blowing that like, how it all started from that little garage and to where we are now. And 4 years later, it's just been like a crazy train ride. Like,
sure.
So, and then, when I met Luke back in the summer, we just realized like, oh dude, we're in the same world. We're at this niche of physical therapy, powerlifting, bodybuilding, and then combining those elements. And we just like, do we just become best friends? Yep.
So it's
from the get.
Definitely one of those moments.
Yeah.
And then, you, which, this, I've heard portions of the story already from meeting you.
Yeah.
This last summer, but you talk about fangirling, with meeting Kelly. I mean, I was fangirling like guilty by association of like, because I mean, I've followed, Kelly for years and loved his work, and spent a lot of time flipping through the pages of the Supple Leopard as well. And so I was living vicariously through you on that opportunity that you had to just be in his space. And like, it didn't surprise me at all when you told me what his response was to you deciding that you were gonna, chase your dream and do this thing. Like, just seems like that guy that, I mean, ultimately that has done that himself. Figured out
to it,
and committed to something and went all in on it. So,
well, and when it's cool, and you see him, what he's done, what he's doing is like, and we were talking about this just last night. He's like, he has a vision for what the physical therapy world and things can evolve into, and he is just trying to open the doors for as many people as he can.
Yep.
And that's why, like, when I first met him, he was just like, so like welcoming and excited and I think that's, like I said, I even asked, but he asked like if I wanted to work with him, because he just wants to give people the space to like evolve what this practice can be, and like kind of, it's not his message, but it's like he's buying into this like philosophy of training that, he's built and other people like him are starting to build. And so, yeah, he is just such a genuine person. Sometimes you're kind of worried, like, man, if I meet my idol, it's like, are they?
Yeah.
And, he's well known. He's like got a New York Times bestselling book and all these Instagram followers, but they're the most like welcoming, down to earth. They took care of their people so well. And I try to model like not just, the physical therapy side, but the community they have there. And that's one thing CrossFit does is like, and they did a really good job of, they had such a close community, and like the people there, just like, they all felt like a family.
Yep.
And he gave us this analogy, and it's like, we all go out in the world and we're eating shit sandwiches. Like this place, this is a time, even if it's just an hour of your day, this is a time to let that all go and to like have a time for yourself and for each other and to support each other. And they just, they live that truly in their gym. And so I've tried to model and learn from like how they run their business, how they obviously do their physical therapy and the training. And so, we're really just trying to carry on the torch of like, because San Francisco CrossFit, unfortunately, like after that, like it didn't reopen, like it shut down. And, I'm sure that, and it was like heartbreaking. And, they're still doing their thing. They're still carrying their message with, all of Kelly's speaking and podcasting and all the things he does. He was just on Huberman's podcast last week.
Was he?
Yeah.
Cool.
So he's still doing well.
Still doing his thing, yeah.
But, just that's what I try to kind of do is like, I'm so grateful for what he like gave me and the opportunities, and just kind of carry on their model and what they do. And like, just like I said, passing on the torch. And I know other people that have worked with Kelly that done the same thing, like kind of just like gone their own way and just like carrying off and doing that and carrying the torch to other places.
Which is beautiful because it's like anything else, right? It's like spreading the gospel, man.
It is, yeah.
Literally, it's just like taking it and
gospel of gains.
No doubt. Taking it and, maybe putting your own little twist on it, but taking that basic message forward. And, I think, and I talk about this a lot with people because I patronize people all the time of like, hey, what's your dream? What's your current passion, your passion project that you could turn into a dream, you could turn into your craft that eventually could be how you make ends meet, but also allow you to like help and touch other people. So I patronize people all the time on that. And if you do find that initial like thing that you love, right, it's then very obtuse and it's hard to decide like, well, what does that look like?
How do you create that?
Yeah. And so I think there's a lot of time, sometimes like, years before that even comes to fruition. But as you continue to grow through it and you put yourself in those settings with people that are already doing it, like there's an opportunity to copy what works, but then also take that message and also make it your own. And that's what's beautiful about those opportunities. And what a rad opportunity you had to do it from one of the best, especially from the physical therapy space, of one of the first guys to really promote like, hey, we're underloading people.
Yeah.
And, some of those themes that you and I will talk about today a little bit too, that exist in the realm of physical therapy. But yeah, what a really cool opportunity for you to like essentially give you a launch point from and to help feed some of this stuff that you're working towards, but essentially had a bunch of unknowns with it as well. So I love that idea. And I was just talking to someone a couple of days ago. It was a new member that I was signing up in the gym, and I was patronizing him. Like, and in our conversation, me kind of getting to know him a little bit, he had even mentioned, he's like, well, my dream is, he told me what his dream was. And I was like, and then I start salivating because I'm like, yeah, bro, like, let's talk. I was like, cool. Like, so like, what are you doing with that? Like, and, and he and I were discussing that. And I told him, I was like, man, if, in my pursuit of a similar business model, like what you have, I put myself in those exposure opportunities, right? I worked at several different gyms, right? Like over the span of my career, I trained at, I think 4 or 5 different facilities, right? I managed one of them. And an opportunity just to kind of see how people are doing things and slowly start building your list of like, I like that. I'm gonna do a version of that. I don't like that. I want to see, you know what I mean? And then you can start building that. And so I was telling him, I was like, yeah, dude, I was like, put yourself in front of those people. And like, if I decided I wanted to own a bakery or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And Rob Bailey, from Flag Nor Fail, I'm in his mentorship group and he talks about the same thing. And I think he's even used that same example. He's like, if I wanted to own a bakery, like I would go work at 3 different bakeries. Like I would get as much as I could and then kind of figure out like, okay, I'm going to copy what works, but then I'm going to slowly melt that into my own.
Yeah.
Because even if we find like a specific niche, like I think we have, and we talked about it last night, that what we're doing in the strength and physio world, we're probably maybe a 10% of the population that's doing that. So it's pretty small still. It's growing, which thank goodness, because that's why we're doing what we're doing, to try to spread that.
Absolutely.
But it's pretty small, and but even though it's small, you have to kind of find the models that do exist, and then sometimes build off of it. So even though it's a niche market, we're still not doing probably anything that's maybe super original. Just kind of making it our own, and
your own twist on it. And we aren't. Yeah, and when I brought my flavor of physical therapy, it's like it maybe seems like I've created or done something. Like I am literally like working off the shoulders of giants and people that have done a lot of groundwork first.
Yeah.
And there is a style and a change I've made to it. I'm definitely more into the powerlifting side. We don't have like a CrossFit gym per se or anything.
Sure.
And different training styles at our gym, but it's like I know my style and like what I do is like a little different than what I did at San Fran and whatnot. But it still has, if you look at the core of it, the same principles, the same ideologies. There's a lot of roads to Rome to kind of get to where we want, even in the physical therapy or training space. It's like there's different ways to get there. And I just, I have this passion for the style I like, and it's like I've definitely kind of molded my way. And it is weird when I've been practicing for a few years. I'm like starting to have to like evolve and like think of like I haven't seen it done this way. I'm gonna try it this way. So there's a little experimentation of like, how I want to program and kind of combine the two concepts. And it's not exactly what I did before, but it's like evolving, and in a sense you kind of create your own thing and your own style. But it's like fundamental from those people that like passed that along, gave me that information, and then I kind of rolled with it and did my own thing.
And I think the willingness to have some vulnerability on that and being like, hey, like none of this is gonna be perfect, and I'm willing to pivot and like adapt here and evolve a little bit, to your point of what that model looks like. And I think any of us that are in any sort of like teaching space, like we are, I think most people would admit to that. Like, man, if I could go back and watch personal training sessions I was doing with people 15 years ago, I'd be like, bro, what are you doing? Like I was probably over cueing people. I was probably doing all sorts of ridiculous things. And Phil, the man behind the camera, with training long range shooting and snipers,
Dude, I did that. I recorded our first training session when I worked at Big Sky Barbell.
you did?
Oh, well, he wanted to. It was a great coaching thing. He's like, we should record you coaching. Dude, it was terrible. It's like, he purposely just does the lifts incorrectly. And then you just like, you're swallowing your tongue. You're like, I don't even know what to tell you. It's like, why do you move like that? It's like, don't squat like that. Do it right. And then side tangent to the story is so funny. He was wearing like khakis and nice clothes, tears his pants in the middle of squatting, and it's all on video. We're just dying. But yeah, to your point, like it's humbling, and we all start this, right? We're all beginners. We're all Padawans on this like journey to try to master what you're trying to do. But when I look at myself, even when I started the business, holy cow, like 4 years ago, even, it's like the way I practice and the way I've evolved and changed.
It has to. If you're not, you're probably dead in the water. And like I said, like with Phil, he could probably say the same thing for the shooting industry. Like how he trains now is he's gaining more and more efficiency, and I think that's just what it's about. And, I think in my pursuit personally of getting this model where we combine strength and kind of physiotherapy stuff, is that, which physical therapy, for those like people are like, what's physiotherapy? It's synonymous. It's synonymous, but we call it both. So. But, I knew I was going to have a gym when I was 13, but I didn't know what that looked like. I mean, it took years and years to figure out get clear and calculate on what does that actually look like? What does that gym have in it? And again, with my exposure to it and working in different spaces, building that out. And then as I eventually found my way to physical therapy, being like, oh, okay, like I want to combine these worlds, And that was even before I had come across Kelly's stuff. But I just had this idea because I had this passion, and I recognized the value of this other, but I was immediately seeing how this other was maybe missing the mark. And I was like, these two worlds need to be more connected than they have been. And so again, that now enters my business model, right? And again, I was practicing, several years before I even had the gym. So again, that just continues to grow and evolve too, so kind of circling back to me patronizing people, like, what's your dream? What's your passion? Like, establish that, but just recognize that you're going to be immediately met with all the reasons why it won't work and all the things that you don't know. and be like, yeah, like that's normal. And that's where we've all been met with that. So now just start moving towards something. And, you know, for you, I love that when you were choosing where you might go to PT school, it was based around, well, I want to get some exposure to these other dudes that are in this area. And like, and so how much that just fostered that experience for you is pretty cool. And, you know, a little bit of clairvoyance to maybe like look down the line a little bit. And
I mean, and you kind of have an idea of like, I want to go here, and if I can, I want to meet the people that can kind of help guide me in that. But then what it turns into and how it evolves. And I didn't go to San Fran thinking I want to work with Kelly or I'm going to have a job there. Like, obviously that would have been cool.
Yeah.
If someone told me that was going to happen.
Right.
But it is interesting. Yeah. When you kind of put yourself in those opportunities, like what they can turn into. And for me, and I'm sure you as well, it's like these opportunities kind of evolve into things that you never even expected or takes turns. And then, like, as I'd mentioned earlier, like moving back to Sheridan, it's like, I thought, initially it's like, that is my downgrading in terms of what I could potentially do, and then here we are 4 years later, and we're at a place where I never even thought we'd be at, like in terms of like our facility and the people in our community and like what it's turning into. And it's like, man, it's like, and it's the scary part, you just don't know the future of like taking these kind of leaps, you know, going into your passions like you were talking about. But it's just so worth it, and you don't know what it's going to turn into. But it's like, having looked back now and like hindsight 2020, it's like I'm so glad for those risks and just putting yourself and exposing yourself to things that might evolve into something or might not. But it's like, I'm so glad I at least tried to take those leaps and do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all afraid of, we all have a fear of risk, right? Just to some extent. But I guess, you know, over the years and course of my life, that fear has been outweighed by the fear of regret.
Yeah, absolutely. I've talked about the Chancellor multiple times. Absolutely.
You know, because I'm like, I don't know. I think about death more than probably the average person.
Yeah.
Because I've lost a lot of friends early, and it makes me zoom out a little bit, and I'm like, okay, like, none of us know how much time we have, so like I don't want to waste the time that I do have, right?
Yeah.
And B, God willing, I do get to die of old age on my deathbed. Like, I don't want to lay there with regret. Like,
you don't have a story to tell, an
yeah,
adventure you went on.
No,
yeah.
And I just think that, you know, one of my favorite quotes I came across a couple years ago was that a man has two lives, and the second one starts when he realizes he only has one.
That's good. Yeah.
And I was like, and that's this spot that I've come to with dealing with loss and losing people, and just zooming out and getting the perspective that, like, man, nothing's promised. No handouts, no guarantees, nothing's promised, but like, there's so much really rad potential and opportunity that I think exists around us and inside all of us. And for the bulk majority of us, we're not tapping into that, and we're not scratching it at that and trying to find that, what I reference is like this like seed of maximum potential that's in all of us, I think, by divine intervention. And I'm like, I don't know, it excites me to try to do those things, to kind of see what I'm made of. And it's interesting because when you do that, like, it's a long road. It's a long road. And, you know, even, I'm sure that, I don't want to speak for you, but like for me and my business, it's really hard sometimes to keep track of the gratitude of the progress that you have, and to celebrate that, whilst also staying so focused and hyper vigilant on what you're trying to build and where you're trying to go.
Yeah.
And so that's been a delicate balance for me to find, is trying to find moments intentionally to slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
In moments like this, these conversations and this podcast helps with that. But to look at where I was, how far that I've actually come from the initial like passion of like, I love strength training, I'd love to have a gym.
Yes.
To all the years to it actually coming to existence, right? And then since it has been in the last 5 years, the progress within that, again, balancing all of that with, but here's where I'm going. And so I spend, unfortunately, probably more time than I should being pretty disappointed in myself, pretty hard on myself that it's not what I think it can be and it should be.
Yeah. And
so I sometimes have to zoom out and get appropriate perspective of, man, I got to find that gratitude and this appreciation of like just how far I have come.
And I think what I have 100% been on that same, and I do still like have that same perspective. And it's like, we try to move so fast, so hard. and it's like we want to just crush it, right? And then you do lose the gratitude and the appreciation, and it's like, I think my perspective, like even just as like of this last year and lately, is, and I'm trying to like remove my ego from it too, because part of it's like ego, you want to be better, best, blah blah blah, beat the competition, which is, I still have that for sure, don't get me wrong. But what I feel like, and where I think I'm finding more gratitude, is I consider this as like almost all of a blessing, and like as a stewardship thing, where I've been given this, because it's like, even where we're at now, you know, and I've talked to like people at the gym and like, you know, my friends, and I do a men's group and we talk about it, a man's Bible study. And it's like, I felt like these things that kind of like happen on this path, like they feel like things that were really honestly out of my control. Like I didn't, like I said earlier, I didn't plan this. I didn't set this up. I'm not some mastermind that had like my path all planned out. And I think I just feel like blessed with like opportunities that came my way. And then what I try to do is when these opportunities come is like appreciate them and be a steward of them, and just realize like, you know, a lot of people have helped me get here, and it's not just me. It's not just what I've done.
No, never.
And it's not like, man, Michael and Chance are so great. They've done so many cool things. And it's like we have, you know, like Dr. Gilbert, the guy that like owns the Sheridan Ironworks building. Like he provided so much opportunity for us and believed in us, and like gave us so much support. And people like Kelly gave me these like tools and like perspectives and things. It's like, I've just been given so much. And then we moved to Sheridan, where we're from, and our community just came in and like embraced us with open arms. It's like, I'm not some like suave business savvy like that. It's like, I just love what I do and I care. And then people have like brought us along the way. And so now it's like where we're at, where we have, you know, we do have a gym and a community, and it's like, I don't consider like, look what I've created. It's like, I've been given this and I want to take great care of it. And that's where I think I have more gratitude, because I'm so grateful for all the people that brought it. And, you know, I want to better myself and be a better owner, business owner, leader, just for the sake of like, I want to make sure I can take care of this, what I've been given. It's like almost like you're given a child, and it's like, I got to be a good dad now. It's like,
oh dude, amen.
And it's like, I want to take care of this, what I, you know, this being, and this like, and then this community I have, like, I just care so much about them and the people. And, you know, for me, it's almost like, it's not the fear of like not succeeding. It's like, if I fail and then I know this provides benefit to people, I don't want that to fall away and like lose it. And it's like, I want our community to grow. And you see what, the gym, and obviously like we can talk about this, but like the rehab and like people getting out of pain, and it's like the value that provides, like, I just want more people to have that and exposure to it. So the growth of our business, I think, doesn't come so much, at least from my perspective, of like being bigger, better, you know, growth, money. It's more of like helping more people, serving more people, and providing value. So it's more of a service position than like, dude, look what I created. Look how big it's getting. I want to be the best. I want to be at the top. And so, and then I think too, and it's like when you look at it from a stewardship perspective, as in something that's been given to you, I try to, and one of the guys in my men's group gave this analogy I really like, is like when God gives you something, or when you're given something, you don't want to grasp it and squeeze it, like, because then you try to control it, and it's like, it's about you and your ego. It's like you hold it and embrace it with an open hand. And then, you know, if it does get taken away or doesn't, it's like, it's just, this was a gift. And that's like, I'm just grateful I had the gift. And so it's like, I'm not trying to squeeze onto it for dead life. And like, whatever happens, I'm just going to try to do the best I can with it. And, you know, if it turns into what I want or not, I'm not going to be like, for the life of me, like, I have to be in control of this. Because I wasn't in control of me getting it. It's like, you know, I was obviously like, had, you know, worked really hard and all those things, but still it's like, these are gifts. This is a blessing. And so that's how I try to kind of change my perspective. And then I think it does, like, the gratitude and that more overflows from that kind of perspective.
Yeah, man, I love that so much. And you're hitting a lot of nails right on the head of like some conceptual ideas that are kind of on like front of the mind awareness for me. And you articulated them in a way that I love. And just to reiterate some of those things and concur with you on so many of them, and you know, some of the thoughts that I had as you were speaking were, I guess, starting with one of the last things you were saying is like, you still put in the work, right? And there's this balance between the things that were given, or I guess the blessings that were provided, we've got to put in the work. I think sometimes there's this misconception that, well, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to wait for God to tell me what to do.
Yeah, no.
And I just don't think it works that way. I think I've gotten the brunt of sometimes some people that have some strong opinions about, religion and feeling like there's too much focus on the works. But I'm like, it says in the Bible, man, like faith without works is dead. And so I'm like, I've always believed that like we have to do our part. It's no different than the self-efficacy that's required to recover in physical therapy, or what's required to reach your fitness goals. It's no different. And so I'm like, when we apply ourselves and we do the things to get out of our own way, and we find those little pieces of personal development, we have such a greater opportunity to access those things that we're given. I think a lot of times they're already maybe given, but we got to get out of our own way, and we've got to do the work and climb those mountains and those hills to get there. And I love the perspective like of a stewardship. Like I've been given this, and it's like, yes, I've worked for it, and I've built this, but it's not just been me. And so giving the credit where credit is due, to the big man that's in charge of all of it. Like I love that. And then that connection to our neighbor and mankind is, again, we're just bridging the gap from so many things that we know to be true, right? Like greatest commandment being love God, second greatest being to love your neighbor. I'm like, dude, that connectivity to like our fellow man, like to our brothers and sisters, like that's what builds it all, and that's what keeps it going. I always say at the gym, like I can work to build the atmosphere in the community, but what keeps it is said people and community. And for me, when I get caught up in that rat race of like run on the wheel, like pushing towards what's next and what my goals are and all the things that I do want to accomplish, what always helps bring me back to that moment of gratitude, and honestly, just like fills my cup to the point of like, okay, I'm not failing, right? I'm not falling short maybe as I feel like I am, is those moments where like you got a client that stops in and they're like, hey, like, I mean, they just have incredibly nice things to say about what you did and how you helped them, or like, and again, it's not like I'm not putting a feather in my cap or patting myself on the back, because again, greater, acknowledgement to gratitude to where it's deserved. But for me, that's always what helps kind of bring me back to being present. Yeah. And I just got one a couple of days ago from one of my clients. She hopped into our 6-week transformation program over a year ago. and 6 weeks is really short, right? And so we have a way for people to transition out of that and continue, because 6 weeks is hardly enough just to kind of get you pointed in the right direction. Just get rolling, yeah. She stayed committed. She sent me this text on the day that she had met her year. And it was this long text of like all the things that had happened in that year. And it wasn't just like biometrics. It wasn't just like weight. It wasn't just, that was on there too, but she's down over 50 pounds. And it was just this bullet list of all these things, right? And less depression, less rage, one mountain climbed, like literally she was able to hike Heart Mountain, and she would have never been able to do that before. Oh, yeah. Like relationships improved, like work is going better, like all of these things. And like for her to like lay that out, and just like for her to like express her gratitude, like helps bring me back to, I'm like, okay, like this is why I do it, to help those people. And then because if it impacts her life, then innately it's going to impact the other people that are in her circles. And people are asking her all the time, like, what are you doing? Like, and just this encouragement to encourage others and have them hopefully do the things that help them step into like being that best version of themselves. Mm-hmm. And, I have this belief that in this life that we're meant to have joy, but joy only exists in the current present. Mm-hmm. It doesn't exist in the future, because that's certainly not promised. Mm-mm. It doesn't exist in the past, because that's done. Like, this is where we exist right now, this moment, this conversation you and I are having. And we spend so much time, fretting what's happening maybe in the future, and then, concerned or depressed about things that didn't go well in the past or whatever it was. And yes, we need to learn from the past, right? And learn from those mistakes to move forward. We need to plan and prepare for the future, but today's all we have, and it's all that is maybe promised, right? Yeah. If that. So I just think this realization that joy exists in that moment, and to have those unique opportunities to have people help bring me bring me back and center me again is I'm super appreciative of, because it helps me, you know, I'm on a task to try to always keep gratitude, but I get sometimes too focused on what's ahead. And so I always have appreciation of being able to come back to right now, to be present, to like see just how far I have come, express that gratitude. And then that fuels the fire to keep going.
Yeah.
And to keep moving forward. And so it's this really unique ebb and flow that happens. And, so dude, like I love everything that you were just touching on there about being a steward of that, and how many areas of life we can apply that to.
Oh yeah.
You're talking about business and use the example of children. And I mean, I have 2 small children you've been hanging out with.
Yep. They're fun.
The last
tour of the dolls this morning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The last 24 hours. So, but I think about that all the time with them.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of times, you know, as I pray with my little boy every night, it's one of those things where I'm like, I give thanks for him. And like, almost like, man, my kids bring me so much joy, right? And they do more for me than I do for them, like as far as teaching me. And so just this realization and acknowledgement to my Heavenly Father, like, man, like, thank you for like trusting me with these kids, and please help me to do my best for them. And it's the same thing with what we're doing, to being a stewardship for these people that are coming to us to seek better health and to recover from injury, to reach their goals, to be healthier. Like,
yeah,
it's a pretty cool opportunity, man. And I'm living my dream, man.
Yeah.
I'm living my dream.
True.
And
yeah.
I always say Monday's the best day of the week, changed my mind.
Yeah.
Like, I don't dread Mondays. I don't, you know, like, I don't ever like, oh, I don't want to go to work. Like,
yeah. Well, I think even to your point where like you stress about the future, concern yourself with the past. And I think what I'm finding with like that kind of perspective of like gratitude and service, it's such a better fuel than like anxiety, fear. And when you're making it not so much about like my business, what's going to happen to it, it's like I have these people I want to serve and take care of and stewardship over.
Yep.
Because then it's not just about me, right? Like if I focus on me and my little world, one, it's just like it just doesn't fuel my fire. It just kind of makes me like selfish, right? But when you have concern and care for your community, it's like now actually, if you think about it, you're not just concerned about yourself. You have your responsibility is to everybody, others, and it's like so. Actually, that almost in a way, like you're the stewardship of what you're asking for is like greater. It's like I'm trying to serve this whole community, and my responsibility therefore is like going up to serve all these people.
Yep.
Not my selfish needs, my wants, or my vision for what I want my business or how much money I want to make from it or whatever. But it's like there's this community of all these people that I am trying to be responsible. And like you said earlier, it's like that requires a lot of work and discipline. But because like I'm almost calling myself to a higher demand, but it's like you're trying to take on more responsibility, but the stress isn't there in terms of I'm doing it out of gratitude and care. And again, like I feel like for me, when I stop looking inwardly so much about my own issues and selfish wants and look more towards other people and serving them, I work harder, I'm more disciplined, I care more, and it doesn't burn me out in the same way that like that stress and anxiety or worrying about everything going on in the future, or how big I want to be, or comparing myself to like this business, that business.
Yep.
I'm like, I'm in my community. I have these people. I have all these friends and family around me. I'm just concerned about them and what we can do next to like support them and making sure we're taking care of everybody there.
Absolutely, man. And it's this really interesting revolving door of, you know, being in the service of others and focusing more on them, to your point, than maybe our own stuff. Which again, there's the balance, right? Like we can't ignore ourselves. And I preach personal development all the time. That
yes, absolutely.
If you're not doing the things that help you be the best you, then I can't show up for said people.
Yeah,
I can't show up as the husband that I want to, the father that I want to, or for my people in this community that I have.
You definitely have to take care of yourself first, for sure.
But if I can have that focus beyond like how many people my craft or my service can touch, innately it increases your return. Whether that's monetary or not, like it increases your return. It's this really cool thing. And I think for most people that are in some sort of service industry, which there's not many that aren't, that are just like a strict, you know, no personal interaction, you know, retail space, like those are kind of far and few between. But like anything that we're talking about it can be applied to just about any job that people work in, because they're going to have to innately connect with people, and you make those connections, and it's a pretty magical thing that happens, and it kind of gets you out of your own way, I think, for a lot of stuff, like as you're saying.
Mm-hmm. It does.
So like, yeah, dude, I love that. I thought my favorite part of the podcast today was going to be when we talk about the physio and strength, but I think it might be just kind of the stuff we touched on. Cause again, that's been so like front of mind awareness for me of like, you know, making the most of this life.
Yep. Yeah.
Because there's so much cool opportunity. And, I think again, by divine intervention, we all are capable of so much. And I kind of want to like see what I'm made of. Mm-hmm. And in an effort to do so, if I can tap into that, it's just going to help me help more people, which is really rad.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm most excited about. And what it's done for me, you know, to your point of like competition and things like that, like I get asked weekly probably about like other gyms or, you know, the new gym that's coming to town. And someone asked me like, when's the new gym opening? I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I'm not trying to be a dick, but I also don't care. Like I did a little interview. The PT clinic that I'm associated with at the gym, they're like interviewing gyms of like, hey, like, you know, so the questions are like, what is the barbell club? And the second one was, what separates you from other gyms? And I was like, I said, you know, to be honest, I don't give a lot of attention to the other gyms. Like I'm aware of them, but I don't, you know.
I don't know how they're different.
I have ideas of how they're different because I've spent time in most of them.
Yeah.
So like I can give you like the objective side of it, I guess, but like I'm like I try to spend more time and energy focusing on the things that you know are my passion projects and the things that I'm finding are working, and like leaning into the things that I feel like we do well and continue to try to build that.
Yeah.
With this like balanced mindset of like there's enough for everybody. Yeah. Like if I'm constantly perseverating on this scarcity mindset of there's not enough, and I have to like hoard it all, that's going to destroy me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm like, so I always say it's balancing. Our ability to win, I guess, is affected by our ability or inability to watch other people win.
Yeah.
And for my competition in this town that are also gyms, I'm like, I think there's enough for everybody.
Yeah.
And they're going to meet certain needs that I'm not trying to meet, perhaps, right? And things like that, so we can all win. But yeah, are we still competition? Cool. Yeah. So like you balance the like, I love you guys. I'm cool to watch you win, but also like if we're competitive, there's just a little bit of fuck you, fight me that helps you stay focused on you. Mm-hmm. And again, not on them, but just like for you to continue to go hard for like what you've been blessed with and the people that you have. And, you know, I think I mentioned this to you last night is in the pursuit of building things, making sure that it doesn't rob you of you know, watering the flowers that you do have.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I like that. Yeah.
And so finding that sweet spot with that. So let's maybe before we get into the physio strength side, one of the questions I had for you is like on the journey to get where you're at, can you talk to me about any like major like struggles or like roadblocks that you feel like you've had, and maybe some were like on a personal life side, and maybe some were like just like very forward facing like business things. Like are there anything that stands out to you from the initial inception of like, yeah, it'd be cool to kind of like combine these worlds and have a gym and do this thing, to where you're at now? What are some of those moments that you had that were like these points of like struggle for you or conflict that you had to negotiate through?
Yeah. I mean, I think even like we were talking about earlier, it's like when you take that leap, I think, you know, even looking back now, I knew less than I even thought I did. How much I didn't know about business, about working and managing other people. Yeah. You know, we've had and hired people that it did not work out, and it was tough. Like that was like one of the hardest things we've had to deal with for sure, is like adding on to our community and team, for like the Forge side, like the Forge staffers and stuff. And we've had struggles with that. And then, you know, just the business side of it, and how we've been, as I said earlier, we've been trying to make like big gropes, big leaps. And it's like every step up has like way more challenges. Chancellor and I kind of have nostalgia of like, man, remember when we were in that 1,000 square foot shop and our rent was $1,000 a month, and like we didn't really have a ton of clients yet, and you and I would take naps, like go lift. It's like those were like, you know, I'm so grateful where we are now, but it's like, dude, those were the good days. That was like the kindergarten compared to grad school days. And then I think, not just like the growth of that, but like being able to manage more stress and then being able to, because to your point earlier, there's a lot of self-development, and that's kind of why I like this path we've chosen with like being an entrepreneur, running a business. You have to grow in a lot of areas of your life, not just how to manage finances, the business models, relationships while you're trying to be a business owner. And we were talking about this on the way over here, like that has struggles. So and in almost every area of my life, like it's totally made me have to try to level up and work on it. With like family too, it gives me perspective. It's like, I know there's been times where I've worked so hard and my mom and my brothers live 15 minutes away and I won't see them for weeks. It's like, that's ridiculous. That's bullshit. It's like, you have been given an opportunity where you get to move back home and be around family and you're not spending any time with them. So it's giving me this like lens and perspective and shifts I have to make. And then even interestingly enough, it's like my journey with the business also really developed my faith as well. I think seeing how things unfolded, and then at times where I try to take more control, and then as opposed to more into my spiritual life and prayer, like how things have evolved and unfolded differently because of that. It really did. It made me like question and wonder and dive deeper into my faith, because it's like these things I'm trying to do, I don't want to do them alone. I don't want to be like the one behind the wheel, because I'm not.
Yeah.
And so, and then what's been really cool is like I've met people through our community that like I've also found like people with these similar beliefs. And it's like I have a men's group of like, there's between usually 5 or 8 of us that like meet up every week. And it's like, that's something I was missing in my life, is like a group of solid men that like iron sharpens iron. And we have really deep talks, which most men, sometimes struggle with other people and other men. And I've been having my faith like sharpened so much because of that too. So I guess to your question, I guess there's maybe more of the business side, but I think it's just, there's so many obstacles that come on your way, especially with the growth of it, that I've struggled with almost every part of it. It's like learning the business side, my friendships, my relationships, and again, like bringing on new people and hiring. It's like this challenges you in every way, shape, or form. And even training, it's like, how do I make time to train and not be burnt out? And like having to, from like a fatigue standpoint, it's like, how do I train? Like, my goals are like to push my body to the limits, but like I'm also in this pool too of like pushing my business to the limit.
Yep.
So it's also changed training philosophies of like, how do I balance that? Like, do I have to dial back more and switch things up? And it's not like where maybe I'm in college where you have 3 classes a day and then you can eat in between every class and then go lift. And if you wanted to, you could probably lift twice a day and it's fine. You're going to recover. And it's like, can't do that now. And like, I'm working all day and I'm exhausted. It's like, okay, now try to max out your squat. It's like, how do I, and learning to let my body heal and recover and all that. So it's, gosh, dude, it's everything.
It's a challenge. And I think you're touching on a lot of the things that I've talked about in other podcasts. In fact, when I had Phil on as a guest, we talked about kind of life balance. Yeah. And it's that very obtuse word, balance. And like, what does balance look like? Well, I don't know that it exists, to be honest. And I think there's seasons with it. And I found that in my pursuit of entrepreneurship and personal development while managing family and my fitness and my other goals outside of the gym, right? Like, in my music career, like stuff like that. Like how do you balance that? And I'm like, you don't. I don't think. I think there's seasons, and there's going to be a season where like, I'm working, 120 hours a week, and and I'm underfed and I'm underslept, for a minute. I try to avoid those things as much as possible, but there's going to be a season.
As it requires it, honestly.
Yeah. So for me, it's been something where it's just having some really open communication, like with my spouse, and be like, hey, like I'm in a season right now of like I've got a bunch of things that I've got to get done here at the gym, so I'm going to be working some later hours, and just communicating that, and I guess finding whatever the quote unquote balance of whatever that is for that season. I think the thing that I've tried to maintain, and it was one of our designs we did on some of our apparel, and I've got the flag in the gym, which you'll see today when I show you the space, but God, family, freedom, weights. It was a design I did, and I've got it in flags too, but that's my order of operation. And it's bigger than that. And each one of those things means more than just what they are. Right. Yeah. But the 3 things that I will never put behind my business or financial goals is my relationship with my Savior, Jesus Christ, my family, and my health. because those are the three things that I absolutely have to have with me if and when I reach said goals.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's less about balance and it's more about just establishing what your hardcore non-negotiables are.
Yeah.
And keeping those. And so now again, it doesn't mean that you won't have to pivot and renegotiate some things. Like with the fitness, for example, I'm the same way, man. Like I used to train like 5-6 days a week. Dude, I train 3 days a week.
Yeah.
What's ironic though, is I think I've made more progress with my physique on a 3 to 4 day a week split
than like
than I was when I was doing the 5 or 6. And so it's been interesting, but
yeah.
And so people are always surprised when they hear that I'm like, they're like, cause they expect me to say I train, 10 days a week.
Less can be more. Yeah.
But I was like, yeah, I'm like, if you're efficient on exercise selection and how you complete it and all of that. But yeah, it's wild how much you have to try to juggle. And that became apparent to me as well. And watching other business owners from a distance at different places I worked, I watched that happen, and I watched how, there's a little bit of robbing Peter to pay Paul, as they say.
Yeah.
And there's seasons of that. But I also watched some people running businesses where I was like, again, trying to pick a model that works and following it. I also saw some models where I'm like, I want to do that different.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I don't do it quite that way. And so again, just maybe being observant about like what we're around and figuring out like, what does that recipe look like? Because it's a bunch of culminating factors that go into our existence, especially when you add something as big as, business and really trying to build something that has a big community and touch a lot of people while managing your personal life. So for me, it was like, okay, this is my order of operation. These are the things that I'm not going to sacrifice in order to try to, I guess, keep me grounded and keep me anchored.
Yeah.
So that I can maybe not have balance, but at least not be swept away in the chaos of the sea and the waves,
Yeah. I like that a lot. Like, I honestly don't even really like the word balance.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if someone tells you that and like all they're kind of doing is just saying from their perspective what would be balance to them, because it's so individual. Like, it's almost like it's not a very useful word for anybody.
It can also be a cop-out.
Yeah. And it's definitely can be an excuse. It's like, I need to do this and I'm not doing this because balance.
Yeah.
But I think what's more important, and you've just touched on it, is like, it's the priorities and what your focuses are and what matters more to you and what fills you up more. What gives you purpose and meaning in life, So for somebody that doesn't run a business, of course they don't want to spend 120 hours working. Why would they spend 120 hours working on something that it's not like a passion project in that way? Because for them, they have far more enjoyment. Like, they would dial in more on their music playing side, right? Like, I want to play music every night because that fills my cup. That is something I love. That is a gift I have that I want to develop. So it's like that person's prioritization of their time, this person's prioritization of their time are so different. And yeah, maybe yours and mine compared to a lot of people, it's like you guys are at your gym all day long. It's like, that's because it's such a big priority on my pie. I would not recommend it. I'm not telling anybody else or like say like you should do that.
Yeah.
But if I actually were to dial back on it, like I would be less happy or I'd have less joy or I'd have less peace because it's like I'm taking my time away from something I really love. And like I want to do this. It's like I'm not begrudged. I mean, there's times I feel like that, but I'm not like I hate doing this. I'm just forcing myself to do it. Mm-hmm. I love being at my gym. I really do. Like I get up there early, even like I come on the weekends and like I work out and it's like I don't feel like I want to leave. I love this place. Yeah. So me spending time there, like, it's like a place I enjoy. Yep. It's my happy place. Yep. And the business, like, and the community and growing it and all of that, like, it's such an area of interest for me, like, where I can spend my time studying and doing it, and to make the extra effort to continue to do things to make it grow. Like, that is not like taking away from me. Like, it's what I want to do. Yeah. So yeah. But you're right. Like some people will just use laziness as a way to like describe balance. But for me, it's like you said, we have a short life. There's only so much time. I want to fill it with as much amazing opportunities as I can and do crazy things and have a cool story by the end of the time. Like whenever I die, whether it's tomorrow or in 50 years, I want to look back and be like, I was just going hard to the paint with stuff I like to do. I'm just doing stuff I love to do. That's all I'm trying to do. And my balance is going to look different. Just the same way as like if you're a rock star and you're traveling the road, like I wouldn't want to travel that much, but it's like that guy's living his dream. He's like, he made it in a niche market that's so hard to like. You became a musician that travels the country and does concerts. It's like his balance is not my balance. No. And
it's gonna be super specific to the individual. Yeah.
But I think what's important is to figure out your priorities and what matters most to you. Like some people are gonna have a ton of family time and it's like what, and it's like yours and mine, even like our tier of priorities are the same. There could be different balances and different seasons, right?
Right.
I do not want to be 75 and spending 110 hours working at this. Nope. It's like for me right now, I don't have kids. So it's like I want to spend a lot of time building the base of the business so I can dial back the business time if and when I had a family, right?
Yep.
So it is seasonal and it's priorities and they can change and there's different times to focus on different things. But, I hear it and you probably hear it all the time. You work too much, da-da-da. It's like, I'm super stoked at what I'm doing. It's like, I appreciate your concern that I'm burning myself out, but I don't want to be anywhere else right now. It's like, this is where I want to be.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man. And I think to a lot of the points that you just made, I've felt in the same things and I found the same things to be true. And people, I get asked a lot, they're like, don't you get tired of being here? I'm like, no.
Yeah.
No. I'm like I'm like, no, like I love it. Like I built it. Like this is what I've been working for so many years. And and then there's those moments too where, and I guess too, and I should say, and like parallel that with, even though I love it, there's at least, once every other week where I just want to burn it all to the ground. Yeah.
It's a weird dichotomy, right?
Yeah. Which I've also found to be normal as I spend more time in the personal development space and talking to other entrepreneurs. And it's like, I guess rewarding and like makes you feel better about like, there's a little bit of normalcy to those extreme shifts.
It's like a relationship. It's like, I love you more than anything, but I also hate you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, and there's those really intense moments of it sometimes, but those are never enough to like make me want to quit.
No.
And to make me want to stop. But there's days where you feel like quitting. And I think that's the power of one more, or the one more rep philosophy. And I've got a big, decal in my hand script on the wall at the gym, but it's that one more rep. Like, Ed Milet, I don't know if you know who he is.
Yeah, the entrepreneur guy.
Yeah,
I like him a lot.
I've heard him speak a couple times, and he talks about that. Like he's got the book, I think it's called The Power of One More, but he likens it to his father, who was an alcoholic, who finally quit drinking, and he would ask him, he'd be like, "Daddy, are you gonna drink again?" And he'd say, "Well, son, I don't know, but I'm not gonna drink today." So it's this power of one more, and that was his answer every day. Yep. He's like, but I might drink tomorrow, but I'm not going to drink today.
Yeah.
And then the next day, are you going to drink again? Well, I'm not going to drink today. I might drink tomorrow, but I'm not going to drink today. It's this power of one more. And I think applying that one more rep philosophy, as I always say, in the gym and out of the gym has a lot of power, I think, to keep us moving in the right direction. And, balance, I don't think is a thing, especially when you're really going to go hard in the paint. And
nobody did anything great with balance.
No, right? But a lot of people did what from the outside look like some really great things, but then there's a wake of destruction behind them. And that's also what I want to avoid. So if that means that I have to reach my goals a few years later in order to create that chaos and burn bridges, then fine, I will do that, and I'll take my time with it. Because again, I'm loving what I'm doing, and I'm like, to what you said before, I like identify with that. Like life is short. Like I want to spend as much of my minutes or my heartbeats. I used to always think about time, and I even have it tattooed on my arm, like this concept of the time is a limited resource. But to make it even more personal, we have a finite amount of heartbeats, and I don't want to waste them. I even have it written on my whiteboard in my office. I have like 3 things that I'm trying to keep front of mind awareness, but it was like, dream bigger, take more risks, don't waste heartbeats, make decisions faster.
Yeah.
Just this, like, I'm living the life that I want to live. And so be like, well, when are you gonna slow down? I'm like, why would I slow down? Rob talked about the other day, his dad was like patronizing him because like Rob lives this crazy life, traveling all over. And he was like, I think he was home in like one of those months, he was like home in Montana for like 2 or 3 days, and he was gone the rest of it, like traveling. And Dad's like, when are you gonna slow down? And he was like, why would I slow down? And he just rifled off to his dad like what the last 3 weeks of his life had been, and they were just wild, cool stuff with cool people, doing cool things, connecting with other people. Like, why? He's like, why would I slow down? Like
having a blast, right?
Yeah. And so I think there's a time and a place to make sure that we can sharpen the proverbial saw. And step away so that we can come back, sharper and do the things that we need to do. And whether that's time with family or, my wife and I make an effort to sneak away a few weekends a year, whether it's to Vegas or wherever else, to just get away from kids and both of our businesses and just connect to one another again. Right. So you have to find the time away, but I'm like, why would I love it.
Yeah.
Like, so like, why would I change that? And I just think, I don't know, sometimes, not always, but again, to my point earlier, people are like, well, you have to, you have to find some balance. I'm like, those are sometimes, those statements are always coming from the naysayers or people that are doing nothing with their life that I would like to be doing.
Yeah. That's where the excuse you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's kind of where they're, and I don't know why it comes from that, but it's like whether they're, I don't know if it's envy or just like they are stuck in their worldview and they don't like when someone's is different in terms of what balance is. But yeah, I've learned to care less and less about that. And I more seek, and you're right. Like you can definitely go too far. And so I'm always trying to check in of like, where am I at? And if it does get to the point where I'm like, I really don't like this place now, instead of once every 2 weeks, it's like every other day. It's like, okay, too much time here.
Yep.
And like I was, if my mom and brothers live out of town, it's like, I got to go see them. It's like, they are in my top tier priority. And I need to not be there focused on business too. It's like that presence that you're talking about. It's like,
if
I'm not working on my business, I'm spending time with them and enjoying it. And we're playing Super Smash Bros. Or watching a movie. It's like, it's like, does not have to be anything related to work. I don't have to talk about it.
You're showing up as son and brother Mike, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's my different roles that I play. And it's like, it's not just, even though the business is a big priority, it's like I need to step away from it. And then in that sense, it's like a balance because it's like I need to fill all of those priorities, pieces of the pie of my life and give that and be present in all of them. Because I think a lot of people too will like call it balance and then they spend more time with their kids going to vacation, but they're not there.
They're not there. They're working the whole time.
Like my family's like a top priority. And then when you're with your kids, you're not even playing with them, present with them. You're just watching TV and you guys have a show you watch and there's no quality there in terms of the time. They don't even spend get to knowing you time or anything like that.
Yep.
So yeah, it's like I want to be that dialed in with my business as I am with like joking around with my brothers and having a good time, or with my friends, or other things that or like in my Bible study. It's like I'm not, and I've done this. It's like you just kind of like, hey, I'll just read or kind of go over stuff. It's like no, be there. You're talking about like what's important to you, like actually the top one, the faith part.
Yep.
And it's like you don't want to lazily just be like, yeah, my faith's really important. It's like no, I need to dive into that fully.
Yep.
And then I know for each of us, like I said, like those all have different tiers of priority or time that they'll take. But I'm trying to be like present in all of them, and I want to just go all in. I don't want to half-ass anything.
I love
full ass everything, right? So it's like I want to do that in every category, like not just haphazardly with them and kind of read Bible, kind of like work on my business. It's like boom, boom, boom. And then really I think the hard part is just like dividing your 24 hours into that.
Yeah.
But that's, like that's where I kind of look at like what my life and what balance has kind of turned into. And I think it's just very individual, and it's definitely like more prioritization, like where you spend your time is what you prioritize, and making sure like all of those pockets are filled of like the time that I think they require. So, and being present in each one.
Yeah, man. I love that. And I couldn't agree more. I think we all wear a lot of hats. Some of us more than others if we're, if you're owning a business and you're building a business or doing things like that. But I mean, I wear a lot of hats, and it's a challenge sometimes to show up wearing the appropriate hat. And I've also found it to be a challenge to show up with energy for that hat.
Yeah.
And so what'll happen, right? And like, and you've probably found this, and maybe like with like other family relationships, but like with my immediate family, my wife and my kids, there's been times in the past where I've been guilty of like showing up with my tank empty for the people that I love and care about the most. And I'm like that. And several years ago, I was like, okay, this doesn't work. I can't do that. Like literally these are the people that matter most to me. And so I started doing this little exercise, and maybe I've talked about it before on one of the podcasts. I'm losing track of some of them at this point, but I've done this like little mental exercise because I often don't have time to switch between the hats that I wear either. It's like literally 5 minutes. I got to go from like business owner Luke to like trainer Luke, or to like physio Luke, or husband, father. And so a lot of times at the end of the day, when I'm transitioning from being all those other things, and now I got to go home and be, husband and father Luke, I'm like, I'm on that like 10-minute drive home, and I'm feeling empty. So I'll do like some, like kind of like a meditation exercise. I'll do some box breathing. And with that, I do this like mental exercise of, I just imagine that I have an individual fuel tank for each of those hats.
That's cool. Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, I'm empty. Well, of course it's empty because you wore those other 3 hats all day. Now just switch fuel tanks.
Yeah.
Like,
that's
because
cool,
I can't afford to be out of energy for those people.
Yeah, it's not an option.
No.
Yeah.
Especially because I'm going to probably come in, it's late at night. I try to always be home for bedtime routine. And I come into sometimes my kids' worst version of themselves because they're tired and emotional with no frontal lobe reasoning. And like, I got to be able to show up. Right. And my wife's been working all day too, just as hard as I am on on our other business. Yeah. So I've got to really work to show up. And I think that's something that anyone that listens to this can hopefully find some value in, is like, take that inventory. Like, how are you showing up? Because chances are there's something that's missing. And sometimes usually it's the ones that matter most, but also kind of come by default. Yeah. Faith, family, the things that they're just kind of there no matter what version we are, which is cool. But I want to hopefully show up all in on that. Like you said, like full ass on that, like just like I do everything else. So yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because that's something that I've definitely kind of been preaching to myself and trying to acquire for my own existence. And then again, in doing so, anything that I'm working on personally, there's value in, I think, sharing that with other people and discussing it, because it keeps it relevant for me. Yeah. It keeps it relevant for you. And it's a chance for someone else to hear these concepts too, that likely aren't new to them, but maybe just hear them again and be like, yeah, it's a good thought. I need to look at that, you know? Yeah.
Well, and I think, it's, if I started noticing that with myself, is like when I'm short with like my family, or like acting like I don't want to be there. Yeah. And like, you know, like I'm carrying over and spilling over with so much of the stress and like fatigue of running the business, and how selfish that is too. It's like they are, you know, welcoming to their home, and I'm just like bringing my garbage in there. Yep. And I think you lie to yourself that, like, you know, it's like, oh, dude, all you did was spend all day at the gym you love and worked long hours. It's like, you're not that tired. You're not that, you're like, it's like your perspective is so like, woe is me. And then you think about it, and it's like, how many people like are just, you know, exhausted because they're like a single mom and they're working 2 jobs, and it's like, I'm like complaining about my situation.
I don't have problems.
Like, and I'm like acting like this around other people, and it's all just selfish, really, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. And I think, and I like that analogy of like, and I've never heard that, but I like that of like, you have other tanks, right? Because what's I think fatiguing is like, you're still thinking about it. Like, that's where you're not present. Like, I'm still thinking about what I have to do tomorrow, how busy my schedule, and I catch myself doing this all the time. Sure. You like are away from the hours are done for the day, and then you're thinking about all the work you have left to do. Yep. But guess what? You're not doing that right now.
And it's going to be there tomorrow.
And you festering on it is getting 0 of that work done. Yeah. So it's like, take off that hat, dude. It's like, like you're not doing anything productive. Right. And if anything, it's way more productive to take off that hat, let yourself be like recharged with like the presence and other people or other responsibilities you have. It's like, that's what the gym does, right? It's like, one of the good things I like about working out and having a gym is like, after work, when I'm burnt out from the business, like your brain kind of just shuts off lifting from that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it's a good way to just step away, and it's like your therapy. So I wouldn't want to be thinking about business the whole time I'm bench pressing. It's like, that's not going to help me with my bench press sets. Yeah. So it's like having that kind of like presence that you bring into a workout, or when, like, what that does, it's like, it's just like that flow state. It's like, have that when you're with your family and your friends and your kids. It's just like, you're in, like, look at that's your child. Like, you created that. It's like, enjoy their presence and time with 100%. Them. And but I like that, where it's like, that hat has to come off. And I have a new tank for this, because really the issue is like, the other tank is so big and it's weighing you down, is why like you're not enjoying that time with them.
Yeah, it's more of a mental fatigue than anything, especially in the
you're
things
doing
we're
it to
talking
yourself,
about.
Really. It's like, you're not dying. You're not like so exhausted that you can't even stand. It's not like it's like, it's woe is me. It is. Woe is me. It's like, come on, dude. Quit feeling sorry for yourself at your gym all day.
That inner bitch starts taking over a little too much. You know?
You ever heard Andy Frisella talk as like bitch voice, boss voice? I love that. No, and that's total bitch voice.
Yeah.
It's like,
and Rogan talks about conquering the inner bitch, you know, like, it's true, man. And it shows up. Yeah. And, I love that. And I think, you know, as you continue to work towards it, and again, whatever that looks like, I don't think it's balanced, but I think there's different ways for us to add, you know, efficiency to that. And, and hopefully, you know, like we've been saying, show up the way we want, and show up for the people that we love the most the way we want, and keep that going. A couple episodes ago, I talked about work capacity. Mm-hmm. And just trying to figure out, like, dial in, like, what is your work capacity? Because especially on the entrepreneurship side or business ownership side, we're just there all the time. Sometimes just because, and there's sometimes, you know, say the ox is in the mire, you got to get stuff done, and there's no two ways about it. You just have to get it done.
Yeah.
But sometimes too, we continually just work on things longer than we should, and so different than workouts. So I'm like, there's a certain amount of work capacity that you have in a workout before you're just spinning your wheels and you're not making progress with that training session. And so I look at almost like your work day is the same thing, and it's probably different for everybody, and it probably is different too depending on what task you're working on that day. But figure out, like I talked about, like figuring out like what is your capacity. Like, okay, I can get locked in on the administration, like behind the scenes stuff for the gym. I can get locked in and work on that for 4 hours before like I want to start getting violent.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, so that's my capacity for that, and then I need to do something else. Even if it means I leave the gym, I run some errands, drop some off at the accountant, or maybe I've even done it to where when I'm like feel like I'm getting to that, I walk out in the gym and I'll do like a couple supersets of some arms, just get some blood moving.
Yeah.
Step away, talk to some clients or members, things like that.
Yeah.
And then I can get back, maybe lock back in for another hour. But just figuring out like what's your work capacity.
Yeah.
Maybe that's within a day, maybe that's within certain tasks, or maybe that's within your week. Or hey, how many weeks in a row can I just go hard before I'm like, cool, I need to take a long weekend, me and the wife, and we need to go sharpen that saw. So I think there's value in just, again, taking the inventories, right? Instead of just being this weird victim to, well, I'm just doing it just because, and then it becomes this robotic thing that we're not even having true efficiency at.
Yeah, and then feeling guilty if you're not working on that or not doing that. It's like that's
So I think there's some cool tricks and tweaks and like, investments or inventories we can take to maybe hopefully increase our efficiency like anything else. But well, man, let's get into, for the last little bit of this, let's get into some of the meat and potatoes that you and I have been eager to talk about too. Let's talk about the strength and physio or physical therapy world. You and I could, do a whole nother episode probably on this and some of the passions that we have. But I guess I'll set it up with, and I know we're in agreement on this, but something that I'd come to a long time ago. We're not loading patients enough. And so like my exposure through physical therapy, going through school, doing the rotations, working with a bunch of wide range of physical therapists, it was this realist. And again, I'm not trying to be shitty here, but I worked with so many professionals, and don't get me wrong, great PTs, but they knew nothing about like true muscle activation and true loading and true like strength and hypertrophy that essentially would be needed to facilitate the stability around that shoulder joint, or to get that prior level of function back, or the return to sport especially. And it was very apparent to me just how we were underdosing exercise, underloading people, and honestly not seeing them to a full return to sport. We were returning range of motion and doing like this arbitrary manual muscle test, and we're like, yep, you're good to go play football again.
Yeah, it's
and
like,
I was
there's a big divide there.
Yeah, I'm like, we're missing some stuff here. So early on, I had a personal opinion.
Yeah.
Even before I found other people like Kelly Starrett and stuff like that, where I was like, we're missing the mark here, and a lot of that was just driven by my own opinions. And I tend to function from a space even in like the personal training realm, or when I give people, corrections on exercise. I'm not a big like this is right and this is wrong guy. Because there's more than one way to skin a cat. There's more than one way to get to your end goal on a physique or anything else, or in a rehab process.
Yeah.
But here's the things that I've found success with, and things that I believe, to be true. And there's some themes that I think can exist. And one of those is that I think we're not loading people enough, and enough people haven't been exposed to what they're really capable of for the strength piece, to like transform their lives. And I know you were talking about this last night with like, people are like blown away by what you do for them. And you're like, man, all I really did was just some really basic strengthening stuff to get you back.
That knee sizzled down, and then we just started doing a strength training program, and it's like, that was about it.
That's about it. Yeah. So
that has like nuances and complexity to it.
Of course.
It's just the meat and potatoes fundamentals of like strength and conditioning and the exercise science world. And I totally agree with you. And I think obviously it helped give me that perspective. But, like I said earlier in the podcast, I was doing powerlifting coaching immediately prior to like becoming a physical therapist and going to PT school. And, having lifted and been in fitness, it's like when I was in PT school and seeing some of the stuff, I'm like, man, I know like when I lift and like what I have to do to actually make progress in strength, that ain't going to cut it. Like that is not enough load. Like, I don't know. Like, but it's like, and for me, honestly, like personally, and even my style of PT, man, I would find that really boring. Like some of the stuff we're doing.
Yep.
Like, and don't get me wrong, there's like acutely and after surgery, there's a time and place for these like
100%.
low threshold,
Yep.
just initiation.
Has to
like,
be there.
It has to be there because yes, you cannot just like go ham like into your rehab protocol. But I'm just saying, like when I would see like on my clinicals and other providers, exceedingly intelligent, really good people, like care about what they're doing. So it's not a bash on their character at all. It's just like they don't, and they weren't like designing rehab protocols where I even thought it'd be fun to do. I was like, this isn't fun. And like, not that rehab's always fun, but I was like, and I hear this from people often is like, man, I just kind of felt like I was killing time there. Cause like they can feel it. Like these, your clients don't even have to have exercise training experience. They're like, what are we doing? It's like, we're kind of just going through some motions.
We're on week 3 of the yellow TheraBand
and we're
external
doing
rotation.
it again.
Right?
And then, you know, you're passing me along to the aid and we're just doing the same thing. And it's like repeat. And I'm not saying all of the therapists do that.
No.
But, and you know, there are like, you know, good therapists, of course, that even don't exist in, of course, in our realm, but just, it's a very common scenario where it's just, like you said, very underdosed.
Yep.
And especially for like certain individuals that are more athletic, but even not, like your grandma and grandpas like would really benefit from some like loading, right? Like just because they're 75 does not mean they can't, their body is not able to and shouldn't adjust and like adapt to load and strengthen their bones, their ligaments, like the same way that you benefit at 30, they would benefit at 70. But people are maybe hesitant or scared, or they have a idea of like they're kind of fragile. And it's like, you know, like you were talking last night, you having your dude that's 80 something, right? And he's repping out 225.
Yeah, I think
it's like his body's adapted to that.
Yep.
Like it's like he is a human being that has all the same systems. Now, granted, yes, as we age, some of those slow down, or there is some changes that happen, obviously, but it's still able to, and he is still able to strengthen his muscles, increase the output, increase his balance and stability.
Oh yeah.
All these physical and functional parts are adaptable systems in our body. We just need to give it the stimulus to do it.
Yep.
And I think what will happen in the therapy world is because it's like, you know, you're dealing with these acute injuries and whatnot, or pain, there's a fear of like getting re-injuring or pushing past that, or what to do after the pain goes down. Like, you know, you obviously got to put out the fire. I always like just telling people, I was like, we're going to calm shit down, then build shit back up.
Yep.
That's what we're doing here.
Yep, 100%.
It's as simple as we're going to do. It's like, hey, that thing's spicy. I'm going to give you and work on you, and we'll make sure that thing calms down. Good, it's calming down. Okay, trying to build it back up. And this is maybe my flavor, and I don't think this is a requirement, but it's like I like to get people stronger than they were before they were injured.
Oh, 100%. I love that. Like,
It's
why
like,
not?
Yeah, why
you
not?
Have
it's
them.
like you're here and we're at a gym, and it's like your back hurt, and you know, you've never deadlifted. Look, we're gonna pick up some crazy heavy weight for you, and it's like you've never touched that, or even not. Like even if they were already lifting, it's like let's get you a PR. It's like, how sweet is your rehab if like, yeah, dude, I tweaked my back at like 400 pounds, and then like by the end of their rehab, they, you know, just even get like a 20-pound PR. It's like, dude, I got a PR and my back doesn't hurt. That is, well, physically, yes, they definitely are able to now tolerate the load, but mentally, it's like, I'm not scared of hurting my back now. Like it's a very psychological and physical. So I think that little psychology of and mental switch they can make when you actually like teach them and give them the opportunity to really push their strength and conditioning part of their rehab protocol, it's like so much more beneficial than just it doesn't hurt, because there's this huge divide. It's like it doesn't hurt to / can I go hiking? Can I pick up my kids? Can I like go play football again? Can I bench press again? Like my shoulder hurt, my PT, like again, there's great physios. They can get that shoulder to calm down, no problem. Okay, but I want to bench 450. Can I do that without it hurting? And you're also not giving them and helping them like make those steps, because that's a very confusing area where it's like, okay, let's say for a scenario like that shoulder, it's like we calmed it down, but you were not benching, you're offloading. There's also a risk of like now you start benching and you're going to upload it too soon, right? Like we got to make you build up an appropriate way so you don't just overstimulate and just like go ham into your old program, which happens a lot, right? You calm it down, then they re-injure it because they went too fast. They didn't have a smart progression back into what they wanted to do. And the same in sport or running, right? It's like just because your knee doesn't hurt right now does not mean you can go run 10 miles tomorrow, because that's what you were doing before you were injured.
Right.
So I'm trying to also guide them in that like rebuilding process.
Yep.
And then if I can get them past the threshold they even were before, and then it's like, dude, we're golden. Like, you've done more than you can. We've built it up. We've taken through all the steps. See ya. You're good to go.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's what's really going to prepare them. And I've gotten in some debate/arguments. Most of them were when I was in school. I was one of the mouthy students that, like, if I disagreed with something or something didn't make sense, I would question it, right?
Yeah.
But I had one of the PTs argue with me about, well, we can't document for that. Like, it's not justified PT. And I go, how the hell is it not justified?
Oh yeah.
Because I'm like, you're preparing them for what might happen too. Because if I'm just taking them to, hey, we've got your range of motion back and you're not in pain anymore, and again, maybe some arbitrary strength test, I'm like, that doesn't prepare them for a lot of the what ifs in life. And those what ifs are those brief moments of like maximum effort that we're not preparing them for. So I'm like, no, you can 100%. Dude, I could document all the objective reasons why, and in my assessment of why that intervention was needed, like from the billing standpoint, right? Which is also
another piece.
Yeah, we don't need to go down that rabbit hole, but that's one of the reasons why I think also this robotic way of treating people has come to exist, is because it's reimbursement, and it's all about trying to get as many people through as possible so that we can get the money, because reimbursement drops, but cost of operations go up, which is why I said if I was going to open a clinic tomorrow, I might go cash based.
Yeah, because then you don't have to deal with that.
You don't have to deal with any of that. And now you can actually give people exactly what they need, and it's not this arbitrary thing because, well, they only reimburse this much for therapeutic exercise, so I have to try to justify therapeutic activity instead, or things like that. It's such a racket. But I've always said that all your patient populations, I don't care what their limitations are, what their ages are, find a way, because they all deserve it, to treat them like a student athlete.
Yeah, they all are. Yeah, we're all athletes. Right?
Yeah, and so like I love that. And like, you mentioned my client. He's not. I'm not seeing him for therapy, but I'm seeing him for training. But I'm doing therapy type stuff with him to improve quality of life. But yeah, dude, he's ripping 225 off the floor for 3, and I think he's almost 83.
Yeah,
and people would be like, they wouldn't even dream of doing that with this guy,
Yeah.
And so it's exciting to see what people are capable of, and we put ourselves in some really weird boxes as we age. And I can't tell you the countless clients and patients that I've had that I've done loading with like that. And at first they're a little hesitant. And like one of my clients that I had for like 6 years, she was like, all my friends keep telling me I shouldn't be lifting all these heavy weights. But guess who got improved posture? Guess who quit being a regular at physical therapy for her neck pain? Mm-hmm. Guess who, her grip strength went up, and all of these other things that are going to help her age more gracefully. And she hadn't touched a barbell until she met me at like age 74.
Yeah. Well, and the weird thing is too, and like I kind of, again, this is where like I kind of evolved in my practice. It's like, I didn't realize, and I started to as I was treating on my own more and more. It's like how potent it is. It's like, holy crap, this is really just dousing all our issues. Like when you actually get really strong, or actually like really start training. Cause like I felt, and I struggled with when I was even in PT school, cause I didn't even have the tools or really the opportunity, because I'm under somebody else's tutelage of like, you have to do this. I was like, man, some of this stuff's just not really changing a lot. Mm-hmm. They're not feeling a ton better. Like I ask them, follow up. It's like, how you doing? It's like, about the same. Mm-hmm. I was like, crap. But then it's like when I started kind of like, all right, leaning into more of the strength and conditioning, and like part of our rehab protocol for your back pain is some deadlifting and some squatting and da-da-da. It's like, how you feeling? Way better. It's like, I feel strong. And it's like, I feel good. And I was like, damn, this works really well. And so I was like, it's potent. It's like, and it's because of what we just talked about. It's like, you're actually causing tissue change. You're actually like, and there is like a desensitizing effect to like adding these kind of loads where it's like, I don't get, and you won't get past a certain threshold of like your body, like not being desensitized to pain unless there's enough input into it from the loads or the exercises. Right. And if it's too low level, it's like, you're only going to get this far. But when you start getting some heavy weight or just heavy for them, it's just like progressing it every week. It's like, it does give a lot more. And just think about it. It's like, how much input is a little band versus like 100 pounds on their back doing? It's like, there's just a lot more input into the system. Yep. Yeah. And a lot more reason for there to be adaptation and change. External feedback. And that's what I always tell people. I'm like, the load is a teaching tool. Yeah. So I'm like, too much load is a disservice. Too much load is a disservice.
just like not enough load is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm like, if we're underloading people, then we're not giving them the external feedback that will help them actually even teach the movement.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm going to teach you to do a deadlift with an empty dowel. No.
Yeah.
I'm going to teach you a deadlift with a load so that if it kind of helps you, your body gets, again, external feedback to help you make some corrections and get that central nervous system connected and get that brain to muscle pathway. The thing that I've found with athletes or anyone in general, when you're rehabbing them from injury, is when you do the right amount of strengthening, you're sending them out the door with confidence and you're removing what we call fear avoidance.
Absolutely. It's huge.
And you and I experienced that in the clinic. Like the fear avoidance is a huge reason for re-injury.
Yeah.
So we get that ACL, right? Especially ACLs. And you're doing this return to sport. If we don't appropriately strengthen them and we don't appropriately do the return to sport, make sure we're getting the plyometrics in, that we're doing sprinting, we're doing cutting. If we're not doing those things, you're going to send them back out onto the field and they're going to be hesitant. Mm-hmm. Hesitation will dramatically increase their chance of re-injury. So Absolutely. You start loading people. And again, even if it's not the athlete, but just the confidence that you send them out in the world with is going to help them avoid the chance of re-injury and maybe help them avoid a new injury to something else because they're thinking about global things. Yeah. We were treating that hip or that knee, but now because we were doing that, we were deadlifting, we were also talking about thoracic stability, and now it's going to benefit their shoulder. So it's this really beautiful thing that happens, and it, not just of what we're treating them for. It kind of starts treating the whole person a little bit. And
you start addressing other things too. And
it's so valuable.
You get health and wellness combined into the therapy. And just because I have a lot of time with them, because we're doing weeks and weeks of PT, the conversation comes up about nutrition, sleep. And these are things that are actually very important in your rehab and recovery. So that is something I automatically kind of throw into it anyway. It's like, how's your sleep? How's your diet? How's your stress? And then we kind of, as we have our weeks together, we're kind of like addressing those too. It's like, man, I'll tell you what I do for diet, and I'm going to give you some advice on that. Like, not like I'm prescribing diet, but it's like, this is like things to check the box on and work on.
You're not prescribing it, but it has to be discussed.
Well, it's discussed. And it's giving them education and tools or resources. I'm like, hey, listen to this podcast, listen to these guys, or you can work with this person that I know that can help really help you diet. But rather than just like only dealing with their pain, it's like it's going to help it for one, but two, it's like people start, and it's almost like this injury was a pivot point to start working on their health and wellness. I've had many clients where they just came in obviously just for PT, but they became gym members because it's like, man, I feel better. Yeah. I'm like, I want to do a bench day, even though I'm here for my knee replacement. And so it's like, go work with a trainer. Yeah. And it's like, having your knee replaced ended up being like one of the best things for you because of like, you ended up like really getting into fitness. Yeah. Give you that entry point. Yeah. And I've had the same thing happen. I've got multiple members that found strengthening because of their time in therapy and their therapy that was happening within the barbell club. So I love that. And just an opportunity again for them to improve so many other areas of their life with the nutrition side of it. Yeah. I had a debate with some of my colleagues in a staff meeting one time, and one of the PTs had an opinion that she said, well, it's not in our wheelhouse, our specialty to talk to them about nutrition. I'm like, how is it not? We're the ones that are helping them heal, and nutrition is where it kind of starts and ends. Your high sugar inflammatory diet is not part of your like pain and
I'm like, look, you don't have to be telling them what their macros are and how many calories, but the basic conversation of like, hey, do you know what I'm talking about? If I like start referencing like single ingredient foods, maybe prioritizing protein more, eating at a higher frequency throughout the day. Some of these real basics, and honestly, those are the basics. Those are all the basics I use in my transformation programs. Like nothing's as complicated. No. And then suddenly, systemically, they've got less inflammation, which is going to help and promote the healing. They're going to get protein, which is going to help the adaptation process for what we're trying to do from the soft tissue and the muscular side of things. How can we not?
Wheelhouse is silly.
How can we not have that be part of the conversation, especially if we're trying to have this, treating the whole person. We treat off regional interdependence, which is just a fancy way of saying if you come in to see me for back pain when you squat, I might look at your ankle because it might start with your lacking ankle mobility, right? So where your pain is might not be where the actual problem is, right? So it's no different than that. Yeah. So having some discussion of like, hey, how much water are you drinking? What's nutrition look like for you? It doesn't have to be super fine tuned, but I think having those conversations is helpful. And as we start loading, there's this automatic assumption for people that aren't in the space where like, well, you're just going to hurt people making them do. I'm like, look, we're not trying to make people world champion deadlifters.
No.
Because when we say doing a heavy deadlift, that's super relative, right? But it's always going to be applied with graded exposure. I bet I say that term 100 times a week to clients, patients, anybody. I'm like, you have to give your body some time for adaptation. You have to do this test retest model of like, let's add a load. Let's see how you do in real time. Let's see how you did the next day. Let's, graded exposure to the things that you've not been doing. And to the point of some of these real fine-tuned things with TheraBands and stuff. And like, again, we're not talking shit on those. That's necessary. And we have to have
place
that.
for it, like we said
we have to have the original neuromuscular re-education. We have to have some of these modalities.
There's definitely a time and place.
But once we're working through that protocol appropriately, there comes a time where I'm like, okay, let's make sure we're not underloading this person so that they can get to where they ultimately want to be, and that we're going to help them maybe not be a repeat customer for that same issue, or maybe even a new one in the future. And one of the things that I've fought as a practitioner, I've had several referring providers have some pretty strong opinions about my approach. Mm-hmm. And I remember one of my patients, there was a PA that I know had said a few things to patients that we shared. And one of them, she reported back. She's like, yeah, I saw the PA and he told me that I need to be really careful with you because you're just on this mission to turn everybody into a bodybuilder.
Yeah, I've gotten that.
And I'm like, dude, what a ignorant statement.
Yeah.
Because this is coming from a guy who's never touched a weight in his life. And he's I guess arbitrarily connected to the orthopedic world and referring them to therapy of which world he doesn't even understand. And I'm like, yep, that's what I'm just out here making everyone meatheads. Like,
yeah.
I'm like, just because that's my personal goal, like, doesn't mean that's what I'm going to force on everyone else.
Not at
I'm
all.
like,
No.
But the fact that I have people deadlifting and using their legs and working on my patients that are in their 70s, trying to have a full range of motion squat and be able to have that range of motion available and like all of these things, somehow that makes me turn like, it
doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't.
Like
it's frustrating.
Powerlifting and bodybuilding are on the farthest end of the spectrum of like exercise. 99% of people are falling in just to like strength and conditioning exercise.
Yeah.
And I have like maybe one client here and there that's like powerlifting.
They're so far and few between.
That's like, you think I'm turning this guy into a bodybuilder? It's like, he's never going to step on stage.
He's a general lifestyle patient, lifestyle client.
Yeah,
like
this is like a mother and like, and she's not at all interested in doing a bikini show.
No.
Like we're not doing that. Or this guy is like, no way, shape, or form going to get in a singlet and go compete on a deadlift platform. Like that's not what we're doing.
That's not what we're doing here.
And and even with the loading, it's like I'm not maxing people.
No.
Like I am not, because there's like this 95 to 100% of like what they could actually do.
Yeah.
Oh, why would I take someone there unless they wanted to be a powerlifter?
There's no reason to.
It's like you get adaptations from far lower percentages and above. It's like you can go
100%.
40, 50, 60, 70, and then like depending how you're loading it, it's like you're still causing adaptation.
Yep.
It's rep range, and it's like, and for them, because it's novel, they don't even need much to like start feeling and having adaptation. That's the newbie gains that we know about in lifting.
Of course.
Like, you're a newbie and we're just adding 10 pounds here and there, and you're going to make some great progress.
Yeah.
So I am not taking you like I would like a veteran lifter that needs to have their CNS shaking. They're lifting so heavy. It's like, you're like, you got a PR, and it's like they could probably handle 50 more pounds.
Of course,
it's like
exactly.
You just picked up 100 pounds, and you were like, that was heavy, and I was like, it's new to you. And it felt heavy, but it's like you have so much strength.
Yeah, you had like
your tissues were like, like they weren't even close to being stressed to the max.
You had like 10 reps in reserve. Like
it's like, but it is still like mentally and physically a new novel stimulus that 100%. Your body will, in an awesome way, just totally adapt to.
Yeah.
And so I don't need to, and I don't want to, unless that is the patient's goal, to take them to a max squat or a max anything.
There's just a misunderstanding about it.
Yeah, and that's again, if you're not in the sport, you just see someone deadlifting and you're assuming they're just like trashing their body or pushing it to the limit. Whereas like that's a very broad spectrum of like what a deadlift could be in terms of your load and what is it causing. So, and that's probably not malicious on that guy's part, the PA, but it's maybe somewhat, I guess. But it's also just a lot of ignorance into like what we're doing, why we're doing it.
Yep, exactly. And so I think that's one of the reasons I want to have this conversation, right? Because I found that as a practitioner, it's my responsibility to educate people on what it is physical therapy can do for people, should do for people, how accessible it is to people, why they should be in it, why should they consider it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that just don't understand what physical therapy is.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's, you know, you get hurt really bad or you have a surgery and you need to have that. I'm like, yeah, but it's also for that like weird elbow thing that you just have dealt with for 3 years.
Yeah. Or how many people don't know that PTs work on back pain?
Exactly. Well, yeah. So it's just,
Like,
you know,
you
and
guys
then,
do back pain? My own mom was like, you can work on back pain? I was like, yeah, dude. She's like, oh, I thought that chiros did that. I was like, we do it too.
yeah,
And
exactly.
she's like, oh, that's, and then I helped her with her back pain.
Yeah.
She's like, oh my gosh, I tell everybody to go see you for back pain
so it's
now.
just educating people. And
Yeah,
so
and
again,
it's just, and I think that's part of our problems. We don't promote ourselves in the right way, like what we can do.
sometimes.
But also too, maybe because like to our point earlier, maybe we're not actually helping those things in terms of the way we could.
Yep. Yeah. And I think there's this misconception that, you know, barbells don't have a place in therapy, and I just disagree. And, you know, deadlifting is bad for you. I'm like, I have this belief system that if you're being seen for physical therapy for low back pain and your therapist is not having you deadlift, do some sort of deadlift or hip, or
like
a hip hinge,
right?
then you need a new therapist.
Yeah.
And so I get these people, and the doctor will told me I can never do deadlifts. Not that they've ever even done them before, but can never do
Don't do
deadlifts.
them now.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. And they'll have their keys, and I'm like, hey, can I see those keys? And I'll throw them on the floor. I go, pick those up without deadlifting.
Yeah.
I'm like, are we going to make you a world champion deadlifter? No, but we have to teach you how to hip hinge in order to have the right muscles working for the right jobs and get that movement pattern safe and effective, so that you don't overutilize that low back out of a compensatory pattern. So
yeah,
I think,
what does it do when you've like now you're told don't do that, and that is like that fear avoidance you're talking about. Now, what does that do to someone's like tissues and the fat, like how the muscles and everything? It's like, what do you
so detrimental,
and its tolerance to actually loading. It's like, guess what you are, because all deadlifting and hip hinging is like bending over, picking up something from the ground.
Yep.
It's like, tell somebody not to do that forever.
Yeah.
It's like, good luck, like, and good luck with the results of that.
Sure. And there's a misconception too, I think, from patients sometimes, and even clients that I work with, is they don't make the connection. Like suddenly where it's now happening in a gym, it becomes bigger and scarier.
Yeah.
Like I get the ladies that come in, they're like, well, I don't want to get bulky, so I'm not going to lift any heavy weights.
Yeah.
But that same morning, she grabs the diaper bag that has God knows what in it, that weighs 70 pounds, picks up the car seat on this arm, has a three-year-old on this hip, and a bag of groceries on that side. Yeah. She's like doing this awkward farmer's carry with like 200 pounds, and she's worried about my 15-pound dumbbells.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, just try to put the things in perspective. Like, hey, I understand that like deadlifting seems scary, but like you start working through them. Like, what are these functional tasks that you do daily where you deadlift, getting something in and out of the oven? Yeah. Like, Karen, I know you love to bake. What do you do when you pull that casserole out? Well, do you get in a deep sumo squat? Like, no, you bend over to pick it up. So
well, and like again, we're not trying to make them power lifters, but what these exercises also do is give you the opportunity to create some resiliency to those positions and like what your threshold, what your back, because like, you know, my back's hurting. I had this client that had scoliosis. They told her this is how you pick up stuff now, which was like in this weird bend over golf pickup way where it's like, you know, don't use your back. That's basically what they told her. And so she is a mom and doing laundry, and her back is just like flared up from just like these 10, 15 pound laundry baskets and blah, blah, blah. So she got to a point where it's like every little thing was bugging her back, small load, whatever, just in general. And so, but guess what we did? We ran her through some hip hinging, some lifting, some load. And, you know, she got to the point where she could pick up a very significant amount of weight, but now like her back can handle this much weight. Let's say it's like 200 pounds. A 15-pound little laundry basket is no longer a threatening stimulus to her back. So it's like, it's not the strength that really matters. It's the fact that like she's loading and adapting those tissues. Cause like, it doesn't really, in her real life, it does not matter if she can lift 150 or 175 pounds, who cares? But she can adapt her back to just loading. It could be reps. It doesn't have to be a 1 rep max. It's like she could do more reps. She didn't have to do singles. She could do like, but the point is like we are adapting and strengthening and building resiliency in those tissues. And it doesn't matter how strong you are in the gym. It's just like, how does that translate into your real life and what you want to do or have to do?
What's the functional application?
And this tool, like, as opposed to just doing some planks and bird dogs and that's it. It's like, that is not going to give you any more capacity to do those things.
Nope.
So it's like the reason I'm using it is because, again, it's a potent, effective way to build this tissue, to build these movements, to give you an opportunity to learn how to move like this or engage these muscles.
Yep.
Because the load, like you said, it gives your body like a stimulus to like adapt to or feel, or like, whereas, you know, just some of these lower threshold exercises don't give enough input to even for you to feel or know what that's supposed to do or engage
absolutely.
that. So I don't care really how strong the client is or how, you know, we're not,
it's all relative anyways.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. What matters is their pain and what they can do. And all these exercises, all the barbell is a tool or an option to change what they can handle or change or cause an adaptation so they can, one, get out of pain, but do the stuff they want to do.
Absolutely.
It's not about powerlifting.
No,
it's not about bodybuilding.
It's not about all
I don't care what their, you know, quads look like or their biceps look like, or if they're lifting 100 pounds or 400 pounds. Like it's all individual and it's relative, and it doesn't, you and I both know it doesn't matter really how strong we are. It's like, that's just for ourselves. That's because we like it. My health and wellness is not my bench PR.
Right, exactly.
it's like, I just like it, but
Yeah.
it's not like my philosophy in rehab. It's like maxing out, powerlifting, bigger muscles, like, you know, the shape of the muscle. Who cares?
It doesn't work that way.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. For me, it's about, again, I want to improve lifestyle for them. I want to meet them where they're at. I want to keep them doing the things that they love.
Yeah.
And just give them the balance. I always say we're trying to just counterbalance the scales of life.
Yeah.
You know, we spend a lot of time in flexion, so I'm going to do extension biased exercises for about anything that I treat because it's going to show up as a value to that. So it's just checking some of those other boxes. But I wanted to have this conversation just to kind of put it out there, get people thinking about it, and maybe give a little bit of a call to action too for anyone that might be in physical therapy or that will eventually find themselves there or whatever it is, or just people that are working on their own fitness without appropriate loading and strengthening. We will never reach our goals, ever, ever. For people out there that are hearing this and you have body composition changes that you want to make, you will never make body composition change without strengthening and loading as part of that ingredient and as part of one of the ingredients of that recipe. And I think people don't realize that. And so just a call to action people of like, if you haven't yet and you feel like you're not reaching your goals from a therapeutic side or just from a general fitness side, if you're not loading and strengthening, you need to look at it because it's the truth. Mike and I have dedicated our lives to it. And I just want that call to action because that's the mission statement of the Barbell Club. I want to expose as many people as possible to strength training because I know if they give it a chance, it's a tributary of positivity for the rest of their life. The rest of their life means two things. The rest of their life, God willing, as long as they live, but also the rest of their life, all these other avenues. So people come in for physique changes, but now suddenly they have more confidence and their marriage is better and work's going better and all these other things that, again, this tributary positivity and it seeps into these other things. We start thinking more about how much water am I drinking? What kind of food am I eating? Maybe I won't have those extra 4 cookies, like, you know, and just prioritizing some really positive changes. But if you're not strengthening and you're not loading, you're missing out. For whatever the activities that you love, on the other side of appropriate strength training and loading are a better version of yourself in that and within that sport specific thing. I work with a marathon runner right now. We cut an hour off her last marathon time because of strength training. And so there's so many examples that I could share that you could share time and time again, but just a call to action for people that you need to be loaded. And so if you're getting physical therapy and you don't feel like that's happening, maybe have the conversation, be like, hey, you know, could we be doing some things that could also maybe take me past what I was before this injury? And again, for your own fitness, if you don't have strengthening in it, I'm telling you that it needs to be there. Because if you invest in that now, it'll help you from down the line seeing gentlemen like us in the therapy setting and maybe, you know, keep some of that stuff pushed off. So I just want to make sure that I added that kind of little call to action for us because
absolutely
more people need loading and strengthening in their life than what have it right now.
Yeah.
So, I want to wrap things up here, Mike. And I want to wrap it up with just kind of asking you as we head towards a new year, what's on your radar? And it could be, you know, maybe on the business side, but on the personal side too. I'm interested, like what's on your radar? And, you know, as you approach the new year of things that you're looking to continue to lean into more, and maybe it's some things we already spoke about. I know you've got the thing with, you know, the personal progress with your men's group and faith, like we've talked about, but heading into a new year, I think it's important to start thinking about what that is. I'm not a big maybe resolution guy as much as I am. And I got asked this actually by this, one of my training partners. Whitney, she's a power lifter, and she's been working in on some of the workouts. And she asked me actually on Thursday, she goes, "Are you a big New Year's resolution guy? What do you think about the New Year's?" And I said, so I, got on my soapbox about a few things, and I said, not so much a resolution guy, but I am grateful for an opportunity that the new year brings to like take an inventory.
Yeah.
Over the last year.
Yeah, it's an opportunity to kind of look at everything.
Yeah, and so and maybe again, find some more things, like a better opportunity for gratitude, and the things that, of how many things went well. Of course, make some course corrections.
Yeah.
Of things that are slowly seeping in, and I don't like the direction it's taking me. But so again, not so much of like what are my New Year's resolutions, but like what's on your radar and some things that you want to lean into more and maybe course correct, or things that you're thinking about as we head towards that.
Yeah, no, and I'm on the same page where you, like, none of this stuff is going to start January 1st. All of them are already in process. And it's like, okay, next year is 2025. This is stuff I want to do in that year, but I'm not waiting or thinking about like, this is the time or day to start. It's just like, these are goals for next year. Yeah, there's a lot of things. I think one, and it is kind of on our conversation earlier, is, quote unquote, not the balance, but what I'm prioritizing. It's like I'm trying to prioritize. And because we have and pushed so hard for 4 years, I want to start pulling back from just like working on the business so hard and making it such a priority in terms of my time. So I am looking to like add on a new therapist and have where I work on the business more, as opposed to just the hours with the clients and just trying to bring in as much revenue or see as many people, and honestly help as many people, because I don't want to turn people away from my door. If I really have a 10-hour day and there's one slot, which is my lunch hour, it's like, come in, like I want to help you out. But giving myself and allowing myself to have the space to work on this project and do more things like this, like podcasting and promoting and growing the business, the brand, the model. And also just allowing myself to have more time for other things that I enjoy, not just the business part. So it's like more time with family, more time with like other relationships. So now that we've kind of moved into our new location, and I told myself I was, and I still have not like dialed back. I'm trying to be like, next year, I'm going to bring on some other people. Yeah. I'm going to share like, I guess like give other people roles and responsibilities that I don't need to be taking on. Yeah. So that from the business side is a really big goal of mine, and while simultaneously like not losing any momentum with what we're trying to do. So that'll be a learning thing, but a good thing. And what I've realized too is I've added on more people. It runs way better when it's not just me. Like I'm not good at all this stuff that I'm trying to do. It's like I'm not good at some of the admin roles and the marketing stuff. It's like, man, if I had you take that over, it's way better than what I did. Yeah. So that's like you kind of like trying to dial back and not have so much control of your baby. It's like you can help, you can take care of this too. So that's the big one there. I would say as well, we were talking about this and I've been asking you about it. It's like I'm going to jump in and try to do a bodybuilding show. I've never done one. So that's just more of a fun thing, like a way to challenge myself. I fell into love with lifting with like, reading and hearing about like Arnold Schwarzenegger and bodybuilding.com. Yep. And so I'm kind of almost like getting back to my roots where it's like I'm training like a bodybuilder again, haven't in like 7 years. Like I've just been doing powerlifting. So that's been a really fun change and just something to like, throw into the mix, and just a side fun goal that like kind of lit my fire a little bit again to like kind of, because it does, and this too, it's like you can kind of get burnt out of just hard training or training in general. Sure. So to just switch up the goal and do something different is going to be really fun. And then besides that, I think with that men's group and that part too, I think my faith is becoming far more, in terms of those priorities, like a bigger part of that. So I'm really trying to dive deeper into that. And I think at times, and I know I haven't like had that as priority number one. So that's not like a year goal. That's like a lifetime journey goal, is like your spiritual walk. Like that's something that, especially this year and more of over this last year into the next, I'm really trying to dial that in too. And seeing, honestly, in like a lot of ways, like the fruits of that, how that's carrying over to all those other things we just talked about. Yeah. And just realizing that's why that is number one. And that's why when that's not number one, a lot of this stuff it's falling apart. Yep. 100%. So just really grateful that I did find, and met people like you and have those men's group, and that the fact that I've been blessed to be around people like that. But that is definitely something that's like next year and beyond. It's like what I'm looking forward to and growing into.
Yeah, I love that. Well, cool. Well, Mike, I can't say thank you enough for, again, making the trip, taking time out of, again, what we've discussed is a crazy schedule with lots to try to, quote unquote, balance. But I appreciate you taking the time. I've certainly enjoyed our conversations, not just today, but last night, and looking forward to showing you the gym, and looking forward to be a guest at your gym over at Forge. And
Absolutely, yeah.
we'll make sure to tag Mike's social media stuff so you guys can find that and check out the gym. It looks awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah.
And dude, again, thank you. Wishing you all the best moving forward, and excited to continue our conversations, and excited to watch you guys win, man. So thank you.
As well. Appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, guys. Episode 14. That's a wrap. Thank you for checking in. And as always, embrace the discomfort in and out of the gym. Live that one more rep philosophy, and ultimately build the better you.